live on Family TV and also live on Family Radio. And we are talking about bipolar disorder. Sometimes you might be having an issue where your moods keep fluctuating. So for a moment you're very happy, sometimes you're not. And it changes drastically, you know, tap. And you can't explain it. And I wouldn't blame you because sometimes you do not understand what really is happening to you. To some extent and in some cases, this could be a medical issue. And that is what we call bipolar. Well, today we just want to understand what is bipolar and how does someone even have to get and acquire bipolar, and is it manageable, is it treatable? And in studio, I am pleased to tell you that I have a very young clinical psychologist. Her name is Akoth Odhiambo from Befrienders, Kenya. Mambo.
Poa sana.
You look so pretty and so relaxed and hey.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for gracing our studios today. So in your definition, how would you want to call me? How would you want me to call you? Akoth or Odhiambo?
Even Akoth is
Akoth?
okay.
Aye, sawa. So Akoth, in your definition, what is bipolar?
So bipolar is a mental illness. It's characterized by changes in mood, basically mania, hypomania, and depressive episodes. I will explain.
I was about
those
to say
terms.
mania.
Yes, it causes significant impairment in your work life, school, relationships. Yes. So mania is an elevated mood that can range from euphoria, and it can also go to irritability and anger. There's increase of activity, increase of speech, you know, you talk a lot. Mania typically lasts for a week. Then it happens, you get episodes most of the day, in nearly all the days of that week.
Yeah.
Then we have hypomania. Hypomania is just a milder form of mania that happens for around 4 days, and you get it most of the day for nearly all those 4 days.
Okay, so one lasts for a longer time.
For a longer time. One is more intense and lasts for a longer time, when the other is a bit shorter and not so intense.
Okay,
Yes.
and despite the time lapse, it's still bipolar.
Yeah, it is. That is what brings up the different types of bipolar.
Okay, so am I right to say that, and they say this, you know, when your mood fluctuates, for a minute I'm very happy, then I'm extremely sad, I do not want to talk to people, maybe I'm agitated, and just a minute ago I was very happy. Is that bipolar?
There are specific things that denote bipolar. Do you have significant mood that is depressed? Is it out of the ordinary? How long has this been going on? How long have you had this? Yeah, so it's not your typical mood swings, and it's not your typical behavior changes in mood swings. It's extreme highs and extreme lows.
Oh,
yes, that
okay.
really impair you as an individual.
All right, I like the way you have pointed out that it is extreme.
Yes.
So I have a friend, and I'm not going to mention their name because, of course, hatutaki victimization.
Yes.
But this friend of mine, we worked together, and she would come to the office very happy, yeah? And then after tea break, and I mean after tea break, every after tea break, you would see her extremely moody, you know? She's not now talking to anyone, she's very grumpy, just wants to focus on her work. And ikifika after lunch, now she's again happy and jovial. You know, I if I'm getting you right, then that extreme change of behavior and the feelings, then
Yes,
that is
yes.
bipolar according to me. Am I right?
Yes, and it also depends on the duration.
Ah.
For the extreme happiness and irritability and all that, that's now the mania part, you need at least a week. We need to see that behavior for a week for it now to be considered out of the ordinary. For hypomania, of course, a bit less. For depressed mood, it's that extreme sadness, it's extreme withdrawal from activities
Other
that used to
people.
other people,
Yeah.
activities that used to give you joy don't anymore, and that takes a period of 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yes, so the timeline is very, very important in making a diagnosis for bipolar. So it's not that just today you had highs and lows and that's it, and tomorrow you don't. It's not that.
All right.
It has to be happening.
Consistent.
Yes.
All right. So what really causes someone to have bipolar?
So the exact cause is not known. We do not have a specific cause, but research is pointing towards changes in the brain chemistry and structure. They may play a role in having bipolar. Yes. Then also the genetic factors. If there's someone in your family that is suffering from bipolar disorder, you are at a higher risk of developing bipolar.
You have pointed out something about genetic. So that means if my mom suffered bipolar, then I might be having a chance.
You're at a higher risk than someone whose parent or sibling doesn't have bipolar.
And is it a medical condition?
Yes, it is. It is.
It is a medical condition.
It is, and you even get a medical help for that. Yes. It's under the mental health conditions.
Okay.
Yes.
Sawa sawa. I'm really trying to understand. Then how can someone not confuse mood swings and bipolar? Because someone would say, "Aula anakuanga na mood swings." And sometimes we might be mistaking it to be mood swings, and it is bipolar. So how can I draw the line and say that kuanzia hapa, these are the characteristics of someone who has bipolar and is suffering bipolar, and this is just mood swings? Yeah.
Okay. There are various symptoms that indicate bipolar. It comes from speech. Are they talking a lot? Do they have racing thoughts? And then there's something we call word salad. Word salad is a lot of words mixed together that do not form a phrase that you can understand.
Wow.
Yes. So it's sentences that you don't know where they're starting from, where they're ending from. You cannot get the idea of what this person is trying to say. Then their thoughts, they have something we call grandiosity. They think they are, let me say, important people. You know, someone might start saying he's the president. Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And also if there's that extreme irritability, anger, that one that you see it's too much. Then also sometimes you can also see it in the way the person dresses, the appearance. I am not attacking people who color block. It's lovely. But sometimes for people who have bipolar, they express it in colors and in clothes. So
Really?
Yes. In hair, in colors of hair and things like those. Yes. So there are a lot of other factors apart from just the moods. Especially when it comes to the racing thoughts and word salad, it's very, very easy to identify what is going on.
So word salad you have, and that's a new word I'm learning today, is in my understanding, by the way, ni yangu too, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, just my understanding in layman's language, where someone is using different words to try and construct a sentence, but indeed it's not making any sense.
It's not making any sense.
I got that.
Yes, you got that right. So typically just like a salad, you have tomatoes, you have oranges, it's a mix. So it's a mix of words that do not really have construct. You don't know what the person is trying to say. You don't know what they're trying to mean. Yes, you don't know where this starts and this ends. So that is word salad.
But what about this other side, yeah, extreme happiness, extreme joy, someone just getting enough energy, extreme energy that you do not know, maybe understand where it's coming from? What about that other side?
There's nothing that is good in extreme. You have to have a balance.
Yeah.
We all need good days and you need bad days. You need to be sad, you need to be happy. That is how human beings are. You cannot be extremely happy because it will make you lose focus of what you're doing. You know, it affects their jobs, their work. Sometimes you find they are so happy and they sing a lot the whole time. They can sing for the whole night because they are happy. It's euphoria. Yes, they are having a great time. Yes, but it's still not I cannot say it is okay, because we need a balance. So that is why that is one of the markers for bipolar. We need a balance, and we need to see that you have that balance. You cannot be happy when a tragedy has happened and just be consistently happy. Everyone will question, you know.
Sure.
Yes, we need to see you're human. Totally.
Yeah.
Yes.
So your emotions must be all round.
Yes, they must be all round.
Okay, and Essie Kimenyi, thank you so much for tuning in today. And before I read the comments and some of the responses that we are having here, remember you can text us through the WhatsApp number 0786 316 316, and also through the SMS line 20316, and also on Facebook and Twitter, that is at Family Radio 316. And I am getting very much interested and wanting to know more about this bipolar issue, and I hope you're doing the same, because it helps me understand some of the reactions that I have seen from people. Esi Kimenyi, thank you so much for tuning in. You're saying hey. We have Maria, asante sana for tuning in. You're following in on the discussion. We have Steve from Gilgil. Thank you so much for your kind message, and thank you for tuning in today. We have Sarah from Naivasha, who is saying, that discussion I am keenly following. Thank you so much. Well, I want to ask you a question that maybe somebody is already thinking of. You know, depression is killing a lot of people, especially the youth. So, again, I want us to define the difference between this depression and bipolar. How do you say that this is bipolar disorder and this is depression?
Okay, for depression, it's typically just depression, you know. There's no additional on hypomania or mania. So the aspect of mania or hypomania is what separates bipolar from depression. Remember, bipolar still has those depressive episodes. But if it's just depressive episodes alone, that is not bipolar. That is major depressive disorder. When you add hypomania and mania, now it becomes bipolar. So that is the distinct between them.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And can bipolar disorder actually cause depression at some point? Can it cause depression?
Yes, it can, because typically any mental health illness can cause depression. It is not easy to deal with yourself in that situation, you know, when you've had an episode and you get medication and you're better, and people tell you, by the way, you are singing a lot, you broke things in the house, you're a danger to your kids, you know. So those factors, typically any mental illness makes you susceptible to depression.
All right. And you have talked about that, and I remembered a story that came to the news a few years ago about this lady who just went somewhere with the kids, you know, and to her it was actually the last day, because in her mind she was this extremely sad person who just wanted to like end it, you know, and maybe commit suicide. But at the end of the day, when her mood snapped, and then she could not now understand what she was doing, and all this time she's actually overcome that, and she's literally trying to fight bipolar disorder and educate people about this. But again, brings me to the question of the effects of this mental health condition to people. I want us to break down some of the effects that it causes to an individual, to family, maybe to your colleagues, to people around you. What are some of these effects?
Of course, there's a mental health factor, like physically, you know, it brings you at a risk of taking your own life. Actually, people who suffer from bipolar are 15 times more likely to take their own lives when you compare them to the general population. And taking your own life means it's kind of self-harm. You understand, before you get to that point that now you're gone, there's self-harm in between. So physically there's that, and socially, in the family, it's very hard to care for someone when you cannot understand, and sometimes even that person doesn't understand exactly what is happening. So it's very, very hard for them to wrap their heads around what they're suffering from, how to take care of it. And we all know mental health in Kenya it doesn't come cheap. So there's also the economical aspect of it, where we have to spend a lot of funds in the hospital, and that is draining. There's a social aspect where you lose your friends. Remember, it impairs your social life, impairs your relationships with others. You don't want to make connections because you don't want people to know you're sick. And a lot of these people face stigma, which makes this even worse, because now they're not free to seek help. They're scared because of the stigma. If you have a child who is bipolar, a lot of parents will not come up and go to the hospital and say, I've seen this and this in my child and I don't think this is normal, because they're afraid. What will the neighbors say? My child will no longer interact with others. Yes, so there's that stigma, which makes it really hard to get the help that they need. So this really makes this issue that we need to talk about it. We need to make people aware. We need to make people understand that it's a mental health issue, but there are also ways around it.
Yep.
Yes, we do not have to lock people who suffer up. Yes.
And you've talked about children, and an SMS just came in through the WhatsApp number. Can bipolar affect children? And how do I know that my child is suffering bipolar?
So typically, according to research, bipolar, there are different types. So bipolar 1 has an onset of 18 years. Yes.
So there are types?
Yes, there are types.
Apart from euphoria?
Yes,
and,
so I cannot mix a whole age group because they have different.
Yes.
So for bipolar 1, around 18 years, but also you can have onset from any time. But most people get it around 18 years. For bipolar 2, it's your mid-20s, around 26. Yes, so there are different onset ages for most people. I am not really sure about the research being done on children, because children are very vulnerable. We don't do a lot of research on kids. Yes, but I do know the onset is usually around 18 years.
18 years.
Yes. It can also happen at any time.
Even before 18?
Yes, for some before.
All right. And how will I know that I suffer from bipolar or my child suffers from bipolar?
The symptoms are very clear. Bipolar is not something that you can ignore.
Yeah.
It's not like, let's say, depression that a lot of people will not see. When it comes to the manic episodes, you cannot ignore a manic episode. It is so obvious. It is so evident. The euphoria, the extremes, you will just see them. Yes. Yes. Most of it is the symptoms.
The symptoms.
Yes, you see
All
them
right.
from the symptoms.
So let me get this clear. And before I go to that, we have Jacob Mbolo listening in from Makueni. Thank you so much for tuning in and joining the discussion. We have also another message. Thank you for this discussion. Please kindly just clear out the difference between depression and bipolar again, because I was diagnosed with depression, but I think it's just bipolar.
Well, unfortunately, in cases of, because I said there are types, so there's bipolar 2. Most cases of bipolar 2 are misdiagnosed as depression. Because the first symptoms you see are the depressive episodes for around 2 weeks, and then after that you get the hypomania. So before you get the hypomania, what is the first thing they'll say you have? It's depression. But the moment the hypomania sets in, that's bipolar 2. Yes.
And what are these characteristics and symptoms of depression, but the early stages of depression that are detected in type 2 now of bipolar, as you call it?
Yes. It's still the normal depressive episodes, the ones that we know. There's that withdrawal from social life, from activities that you used to like. There's crying a lot, extreme sadness, you lose hope in life. Nothing excites you anymore. There are changes in behavior. You don't sleep well, you don't eat well, or you eat too much and you sleep too much. You're unkempt and things like those. You don't take care of yourself physically. You don't talk to people. Just those symptoms of depression that people normally face. Yes. But now it's like when I say sadness, I don't mean that one time that you are sad. I mean something that goes on for 2 weeks. So if it's sadness, you've been sad for 2 weeks consistently, and it's extreme. You've been crying a lot, and sometimes without reason, you just burst into tears. Those changes have been happening for 2 weeks. So the timeline is very, very important. Yes.
All right. And can natural I call them natural calamities, because sometimes you can avoid them, sometimes you cannot. So can life basically cause someone to have bipolar disorder?
Okay. Not just life in itself. It has to have other factors. Remember, I said brain chemistry and structure may point to a cause of bipolar. There's the genetics. So it is not just a life issue alone, though it might trigger an onset. Because having a hard life period might actually lead you into having depressive episodes. And then if you are susceptible to bipolar, the manic or the hypomanic episodes set in.
Those are the extremes.
Those are the extremes now. Yeah. But there has to be other precipitating factors, especially for the aspect of mania and hypomania. There has has to be other factors like those brain chemistries, your dopamine, serotonin. I'm sorry for the big words, but those are they are neurotransmitters in your brain, the chemicals that balance your brain activity. It's how you feel, it's how you think, your motivation,
feelings, your thinking, your actions, maybe.
So the levels have to be at par. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
There's another one here. Let me get these. I think my husband has bipolar. Just reading from the script that you are telling me. Then please tell me how I can deal with this.
So the first step, if you suspect someone is having bipolar, please go to the nearest health facility that you have, because bipolar is not a joke. It is not something that you want to postpone. Kindly take that person to the nearest health facility. They'll see a psychiatrist, they'll see a psychotherapist, they will get the help, because them being at home is not helping. They need medication to suppress the moods. They need psychotherapy to deal with the other issues that they have, you know, because without psychotherapy, pharmacotherapy, which is the medicine, will not work so well. Without the medicine, psychotherapy will not work. So you need these two things, which means you need to take this person to see a health practitioner. Yes.
All right. Continue sending in your comments and any questions that you have about bipolar disorder, because that is where we are basing our discussion today, and we are learning together. And we'll be coming back to talk about how we can deal with people who are already diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and also how to protect yourself and make sure that you do not fall victim at some point. And if you're a victim, then is there hope? We're talking about bipolar disorder, and a lot of revelations are being made to me today that sometimes you might think you're okay, you're just having mood swings, but there is a difference. And there's also a difference between bipolar and depression. I want us to look at some of the statistics that we have right now in our country about bipolar, and also when we come back we will be looking at some of the treatment measures that we can put in place, and also some advice to you who's suffering bipolar, or maybe you have someone that you know is suffering bipolar. Let's look at some of these statistics. An estimated 46 million people in the world had bipolar disorder in 2017, with 52% and 48% being female and male respectively. 1 in 4 Kenyans, that is 11.5 million people, suffer from one or a combination of mental disorder. These include mood disorders, thinking disorders, and behavior disorders, such as bipolar disorder. Bipolar disorder used to be called manic depression. As the older name suggests, someone with bipolar disorder will have severe mood swings. These usually last several weeks or months and are far beyond what most of us expect. A substantial source of the disease burden in bipolar disorder is suicide-related. Researchers estimate that between 25% and 60% of individuals with bipolar disorder will attempt suicide at least once in their lifetime, and between 4% and 19% will complete suicide. Bipolar disorder typically develops in late adolescence or early adulthood. The average age of onset is 20 for both men and women. However, there are some variabilities in the age of onset that needs to be recognized. Let's find out how we can all play a role to help people with bipolar disorder. Well, those statistics are clearly showing that 1 in every 4 people is suffering bipolar, and that is a big number, a very big number, especially with our population right now. And Akoth Odhiambo is still in studio from Befrienders Kenya, clinical psychologist. I like that name. I don't know why. It's clinical psychologist. Well, let me ask you something. The statistics have pointed out that about 20% of these people who are suffering bipolar will either attempt suicide, and a certain percentage of that will complete the suicide mission.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
What do you think it leads them to even have these thoughts and reach these extreme extents?
Okay, first of all, with the depressive episodes aspect, that means you're very vulnerable to, remember, depressed people no longer have anything to live for. You're hopeless, you're constantly sad, and you just want that to end. So it can precipitate one to take their own lives, to attempt or complete. Yes, so there's that factor. And also, when you're suffering from bipolar, when you're having an episode, it means your thoughts are not clear. You're not thinking right. You can be impulsive, meaning you can easily hurt yourself in one way or another because you're not in the right state of mind. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I like that. And we have Suge from Nandi Hills who is saying, is it true that someone who frequently becomes angry dies easily?
Oh,
This
wow.
is a perspective maybe that he has. Is it true maybe from the psychological point of view?
Okay, we are told that happiness adds more years. I mean, laughter brings more years. We grew up with that notion.
Yeah.
Well, but human life is not something that we can really quantify, you know, what would make you live longer. It has a lot of other factors. But we would encourage happiness, yes.
Yes.
As opposed to anger.
Anger,
Yes, but anger is also a normal reaction to situations, yes.
All right. And there's a question that keeps playing in my mind and I keep assuming but inarudi tu tena. And before that, Molly, thank you so much for tuning in. You're saying, I'm just following. Apart from the type 1 and the type 2 kind of bipolar, which comes again by age, as you had broken it down to us earlier, are there any other types of bipolar disorder that we need to be aware of?
Yes, there is a substance-induced bipolar disorder.
Substance-induced.
Yes.
Before you even explain, I take something and then it causes bipolar.
No, you take something and the effects of that something bring about symptoms of bipolar. And the symptoms tend to last for about a month.
Wow.
Even withdrawal to some substances can cause that. Yes.
What are some of these substances?
Typically illegal drugs, if I put it like that. Yes, because if I say drugs, that would now put even Panadol there.
Yeah.
Yes, but we have, heroin, cocaine, all that. There are people who cannot really tolerate these substances. Yes, and when you use them, they have this effect on your brain chemistry, like I said. That's why you get high, you get a rush of pleasure. When you take alcohol, you get drunk. Yes, it's all in the brain chemistry. It interferes with that. And remember, when you interfere with the brain chemistry, what happens? You're making yourself open to bipolar disorder. So if you're genetically not able to sustain these harsh substances, then you would get bipolar-like symptoms for around a month. And withdrawal also comes with something like that.
For a whole month, yani too, my moods are fluctuating.
Yes.
And it's just because of something that I took.
Yes, you hear people who say he just drank a bottle and lost it, He just took a puff of marijuana and now he's talking and working everywhere and has this rush of energy for like a month. That is what happens. You interfere with your brain chemistry when you do that. You interfere with your neurotransmitters. Yes.
All right. Any other type?
There is cyclothymic disorder. Cyclothymic is it is related to bipolar in that you get hypomanic symptoms for around 2 years, but they're not enough to warrant mania. You also get depressive episodes for that same period.
2 years.
Yes, but they're not enough to warrant a major depressive disorder. So you're like somewhere in between. Yes, I think it was part of a classification that came out because there are now people who we cannot put them in those categories.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. And we have a question here. My baby gets sugar rush every time she takes a certain brand, and she pointed out the brand, but unajua nini natupeanga sugar rush, yeah?
Yes.
Is that something that I should be worried about?
Well, one of the reasons why children are not really put under the bipolar category is because children, in their behavior, there's a certain way that they are excited most of the time.
Yeah.
They get sugar rush. I do not know of any adults that get extreme sugar rush.
I know someone.
Could it be as extreme as of a child's?
No, not really.
Exactly. So developmentally, children, where they are, they have those fluctuations. So it makes it very hard for us to put them in the bipolar category.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think that is just sugar rush.
It's just sugar rush.
Yes.
But when it it reaches to an extreme where amefika 18 maybe,
Yes.
where type 1 now comes in, and she still has this kind of fluctuations in her moods, then that is something that
That
they
is
should
something, because at 18 developmentally we expect you to handle situations, we expect you to be happy at some point, to be sad at some point, and to be aware that I am happy, I am sad. So if it is a normal situation, we expect you to developmentally, we expect you to find a way around it. Okay, so if you're not able to do that, then it means there's a problem somewhere. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And now I have been diagnosed. Is there hope that can bipolar be treated?
There are treatment for the symptoms, but it cannot be cured.
It cannot be
It cannot be cured. You cannot have bipolar today and not have bipolar ever, forever. We can manage the symptoms. We can keep the episodes at bay with medication, with psychotherapy. Yes, but there's no known
Medication
cure.
and psychotherapy.
Yes.
You know, they say there's a saying too. A problem shared is a problem half solved.
Yes.
Yeah, and you've brought out the issue of psychotherapy. You call it psychotherapy.
Yes.
And does this basically mean that when I am suffering bipolar, then I go sit down with a psychologist, tell them what I feel? Can that help me get comfortable and manage the bipolar that I'm suffering from?
Yes, it can, but you also have to do it with the medicines.
Oh, it
Yes,
goes
it goes hand in hand.
Okay.
You cannot go one way and leave the other. Yes, but psychotherapy does help. That is what we do at Frienders Kenya. We handle psychotherapy issues. Yes.
All right. We have someone who's texting in. I'm listening in from Kisumu. Kindly tell me, am I suffering from this issue called this issue called bipolar? Because every day I'm with my friends, I feel so hyped, but when I get to my home, then I am extremely low. Can we say that is bipolar?
How long has that happened? When she says extremely high, what does that mean? Because for us to give you a diagnosis, we have to do something we call a mental state exams. We have to look at your appearance. We have to look at to know how the quality and quantity of your thoughts, of your behavior. Yes, there's a lot of your affect regulation. How do you regulate your emotions? So it's not just something that you can do in. It's a process. Yes, you have to see someone who can put you in that criteria. And we also have to remember, I say the timelines are very, very important. Like, has this been going on for less than a week, then that's not the criteria for bipolar. It has to be, for the manic episodes, it has to be at least 1 week or more. Yes, not just 2-3 days. So it's not really possible to give a diagnosis without, someone going to the health facility, because there's a lot of factors that we need to consider. Is this happening because you're having another mental health issue? Yes, we have to understand, is it because of something you take when you're with your friends, or when you go home the effects have worn off? Yes, there's a lot. Yes.
All right. And maybe if it has gone on for about, you say 2 weeks.
For the depressive episodes, it's not less than 2 weeks.
Not less than 2
Yes,
weeks.
for the manic episodes is not less than 1 week. For hypomania, it's not less than 4 days. Yes.
Not less than 4 days.
Not less than 4 days.
All right.
Yes.
And hypomania, you said, and I'm taking this literally to be now the early stages, the completely early stages. You're saying that cannot also be cured completely.
There's no cure.
There's no cure for bipolar.
We just manage the symptoms. Yes, we just manage the symptoms.
All right.
But with medication, I have to be very clear on this. With medication and psychotherapy, people go back to their normal lives. I know people who go back to work and they go back to school and they go back to their families with the right kind of regimen. Yes. So it doesn't mean that now your life is over because you're diagnosed with bipolar. It means that now we know what is wrong and we know how to help you and we know how to make you come back to where you feel you're okay. Yes.
All right. My name is Mary. I'm listening in from Nakuru. I like this discussion. I suffered bipolar at some point, and I feel the problem with us as a country is that we so much kemea, and she's used the word kemea, people who come out to the open and say that they suffered bipolar. That is the problem, and that is why most people opt to stay indoors and not come out with their problems.
Yeah, there is stigma.
Victimization,
Yes.
stigma.
Yes, and it's a lot, and it really affects even research, because if we do not have the exact numbers of people going through this, we don't know how to find solutions. Yes, so apart from that, it affects your quality of life. People get fired from their jobs, and you lose your livelihoods, and you have a family. I mean, how are you supposed to come back from that? Because they just came out and said, look, I have this problem and I need help. At that point, we need to be understanding. We need to seek help for them. We don't need to victimize them. I mean, this is something that just occurs, you know. Like I said, there's no specific cause that we know. So how do you know that you won't get it at some point? Yes.
All right. And here I am. I have a friend who's suffering bipolar. So how am I supposed to deal with them? You know, with the fluctuating moods. How am I, as a person who in this case is not suffering from the bipolar disorder, how am I supposed to deal with them to make sure that they are comfortable and I am also comfortable?
Okay, so the first thing is psychoeducation. You need to understand what this person is going through. You need to understand what is bringing this, and how long this is going on. And this is where social support comes in. The moment you take them to the hospital, you need to make sure that they are under their medication, they take their medication right at the right time. When you're a friend and you give that support to someone, they will feel very comfortable to take their medication, to go for therapy. So dealing with that is by just being a support system to them. Let them know they're loved, they're cared for, and everything is going to be all right because you are there for them. Yes.
Is it right for me to at least run away when they're extremely angry or extremely low?
Well,
okay, run away is a big word.
Yes.
Give them some space.
Yeah,
we all need to do that.
We all respond differently to situations that are distressing. So as much as you're giving them social support, sometimes normally you'd get very afraid, especially if you've never ever come into contact with someone who's suffering from bipolar and they're in that manic episode. Yes. But that support is really necessary, especially in the depressive episodes. Remember I said you get depressed and you feel like you have nothing to live for. Yes, and you don't have hope anymore. But having someone there for you and who's not running away really helps the situation. Yes, I mean, if we all run away, so who's going to help?
Who's going by there?
Yes, I know it is scary. For real, it is. But being a friend or a family means at least this person has someone who cares about them, someone who can make sure they do things right, they take their medication, they can talk about it, they can say, you know, me, I feel like now I'm being too sad. This is just going towards a really bad downward spiral. What can I do? Yes.
And lastly, maybe someone who thinks they have bipolar because they have the symptoms and they are afraid to go out there. What can you tell them?
A lot of our mental health facilities do not have that discrimination tag. We've really tried in that aspect. So if you feel like you're having these symptoms, kindly visit your nearest health facility. That is the first step. When you visit your nearest health facility, they will determine if it is truly bipolar or if there's something else going on. And they will obviously give you a plan forward. If it's medication, you get antipsychotics, you get mood stabilizers, or a mix, or whatever the psychiatrist will prescribe. If it's psychotherapy, you'll get behavior changes therapy and things like those, in family therapy. Yes, so if you feel anyone you know or you think you have these symptoms, kindly go to the nearest health facility. And if it's someone in your family, please be their support system.
Be their support system.
Yes.
I like that. I have one more question. Please, Mr. Director. 1, 2. Hi, I had a friend who said they have a pure OCD. Could you help explain that?
Well, OCD is obsessive compulsive disorder. Has very little to do with mood.
Yeah,
it's typically your behavior and how you process it. You can be strict in a lot of things. It can be too neat. It can be, but there are also, like I said, a lot of factors that we have to consider. Yes, So that's all I can say about OCD. Obsessive compulsive disorder.
Obsessive
Yes,
compulsive.
you obsess about something
disorder.
and you feel compelled to do it. Like I feel like I cannot sleep if I don't check the door thrice to make sure I locked it. So I will wake up and do that and do that and do that and do that. But I have to wash my hands 20 times.
I know I am laughing because some people say I have that. I don't. Maybe I don't have it, but it's not a bad thing. Well, thank you so much, my dear, for coming today, and I hope you got the explanation for OCD and you learned so much about the bipolar disorder. And if you know anyone, please be their support system, as my friend Akotho Diambo has told us today. Well, thank you so much for coming today. We really appreciate that.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you too for tuning in to This Is The Day. I'll leave it at that. Thank you so much and have a beautiful evening. My name is Sarah Otieno.